everyone, welcome back. I was so excited to see the MAC in Monochrome collection that I picked up a lot of items from the Ruby Woo lineup, so I wanted to do a tutorial based on this entirely red look. I'm starting out with the eyes as per usual, and I'm layering on 2 eyeshadow primers, first starting with the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Amplifying Eye Primer, and just blending that out with my fingertips, and then I'm applying the Milani eyeshadow primer on top of that base. We're then going straight in with eyeshadow, and I'm using the MAC Walking Heartbeats eyeshadow from the MAC in Monochrome collection. Again, everything is from that Ruby Woo lineup because I am so in love with red everything, especially in terms of eyeshadow. So I'm using this eyeshadow on a fluffy brush, and I found that it actually really wanted to stick to the primer. So it's blending out nicely, but it does require a little bit of work to build it and buff it out. The color is gorgeous, but it really wants to adhere to the primer, which is a good thing, but it can mean that blending takes a little bit longer than you would expect. For my lid color, I'm going to be taking the other red shadow from this collection, which is Holly Folly, and I went in with a wet brush. I'm not really sure why. I don't always go in with a wet brush right away with such a shimmery color, but I just felt like I wanted this to look really molten and almost wet. So I sprayed my brush with some water, went into the shadow, and then applied it directly onto the eye. And it did smooth on pretty nicely, but again, these shadows really want to stick to that eyeshadow primer, so I did feel like I had to layer it a few times in order to get full opacity. Once that lid color was on, I did go back in with the matte red shadow and reapplied that through my crease. I just wanted the transition between the sort of wet lid shade and the matte outer corner color to be a little bit smoother, so going back in with a brush can even that edge. For my brow bone highlight shade, I'm going to be using Wet n Wild's Brulee eyeshadow, and this is just a bone colored shade, but it really does help even out that matte red color that's sort of in my transition area and make it fade a little bit better up to my brow bone. And that's it for the eyeshadows. It's a very simple look in terms of eyeshadow, but I'm going to give it a little bit more impact by putting on some winged liner. I'm using the Physicians Formula Eye Booster in Ultra Black. I do have a very in-depth tutorial on how I do winged liner, so I'll link to that in the description bar down below in case you're interested to hear more. Moving on to the rest of the face, I'm applying the Too Faced Peach Perfect foundation in Snow, and I'm just applying it with a damp Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. This never changes in my routine, but I've been told that people actually like seeing me put foundation on, even though I find it exceptionally boring. So even though I don't have any great tips on how to apply foundation, or nor do I change my routine at all, I am literally just leaving this here for entertainment purposes. So if you're somebody who watches tutorials, and they are one of the least watched videos in the beauty world, that's for sure, but tell me what you actually like about them. What's your favorite part in a tutorial? While I do appreciate seeing a good eyeshadow tutorial, I'm always curious to see how people do their winged liner, because the angle is so different from person to person. Okay, back to whatever's happening in the tutorial right now, which is apparently bronzer. So I'm applying my Too Faced Milk Chocolate Soleil bronzer. I've been wearing this lightest shade throughout the winter because it does suit my skin, because I've certainly paled out from whatever summer tan I did have. And I just apply this in the 3 and backwards 3 motion, which is basically along my temple, the backs of my cheekbone, and very lightly along my jawline. Okay, so the blush in this collection is called Apple Red, and it is red, and it likes to layer. And very quickly you can get clown cheeks with this. So I put it on very heavily on one side and then realized that I had to repeat that on the other side or it's going to look completely mismatched. And I think you can see that it is a very strong blush, so you should tread lightly, but that is definitely too much blush for me to be wearing. So I went back in with my sponge and tried to blend it out a little bit, but I realized it wasn't doing it enough. So I had to use a little bit of extra foundation on top of the blush to sort of even it out. And then I really liked the look. So tread very lightly with this blush. It is pigmented. For my highlighter, I wanted to stick to something fairly neutral, but with sort of a creamy champagne edge. So I'm using the Stila Heaven's Hue highlighter in the shade Kitten. And I'm putting 2 layers on because I did want it to be super shimmery and shiny. And the color does work out quite well, but I actually think it tinted my blush a little bit more of an amber tone, which I wasn't expecting. So think about that when you're applying your highlighter on top of your blush, is that sometimes you can change the color of it. Moving back to the eyes now that I finished the face, I'm taking the Marc Jacobs Highliner Gel Crayon in the shade Fine Wine, and I'm applying that directly onto my lower waterline because I wanted this look to be very saturated and red. And then I'm going back in with my lid color, but using kind of a smudger brush to layer this along my entire lower lash line. I wanted a really shimmery red along the entire lash line, and then I was going to start buffing that out with the matte shade, which is Walking Heartbeats. So I took this on a slightly fluffier brush than the one I was using to line the lower lash line and layered this just below the shimmery color and then brought it up past where my wing is. I wanted this to be an intensely blown out red smoky eye, and I have learned to like when I bring my eyeshadow out really far on the sides. I've mentioned before that it can feel very strange the first few times that you do it because it does look so big on your face, but I really think the overall effect is really beautiful. So I've been doing that a lot more lately and I love it so much. To keep my highlighting consistent, I'm going to go back in with the Kitten highlighter and apply that on the inner corner of my eye. And you can see here that it's kind of taking whatever's left of the red that sort of traveled into the inner corner of my eye and just making it a little bit more shimmery and paler. So it's kind of turning it into a pink, but I do think there's a bit of a champagne edge to it. For my brows, I'm going to be using a pomade today, which I usually do on camera just because I feel like it looks a little bit stronger as opposed to pencils that I normally opt for. And I'm using the Inglot and JLo Brow Liner Gel in the shade Taupe J503. I basically wear eyebrow pomades if I'm on camera or if there's really strong weather outside and I want my brows to hold up for the entire day. So when I placed my MAC order online for this MAC in Monochrome collection, they also threw in a sample size of the MAC in Extreme Dimension 3D Black Lash. So I thought I'd put that on for this video. I do like it. The brush is a little bit hard to use because the handle is so small, but the brush itself actually delivers a decent amount of product and separates my lashes. I'm going to be throwing on some fake lashes as well, and I've been using Socialize a lot lately. They're a Canadian brand and I've really been enjoying their lashes, particularly these ones. They're called Lady and they're just the right amount of extra lash without being too intense, and I feel like that's the comfort zone for me. I like a lash, but I don't want it to be overbearing at times. And tip for false lashes, never forget to recover that band with your liquid liner. And the last piece of this is MAC's Ruby Woo lipstick, which is the inspiration for this entire red collection from the MAC in Monochrome set. And it is a retro matte formula, so it's a little bit stiff to apply. I did find that using a brush to clean up the edges really helped to make like that perfect crisp line. So that is it for this tutorial. I have to say I really love that MAC came out with this collection because I have been such a staunch supporter of red eyeshadow for quite a long time that when I saw them announce this, I was like, yes, I am buying every single piece except for the gloss because I didn't really see the point in that. But the eyeshadows and the blush, I was so down with that. Thanks so much for watching this tutorial, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!